Hello and a very warm welcome back to KGC Engineering, and it's day 4 of our mini project. As you can hopefully see, we've got the mini up on the stands now, well, up on the ramps, so we can get underneath and start stripping out the underside, and that's really going to be today's effort, because we've got to get the fuel pipe out, the brake lines, any wiring that goes under there, the exhaust, anything basically that is on the underside of the car that isn't attached to the subframes needs to come off as soon as we can now. So we basically essentially then disconnected everything underneath, and then we can start looking at stripping out the engine bay to get the engine out and all the other bits and pieces that go in there, so we then be able to drop the 2 subframes, get it on the dolly, and it then goes off for acid dipping. If only it was that simple. Well, as you've probably noticed with a lot of these videos, things do go wrong. It takes twice as long to do certain jobs, but that is the nature of classic car restoration. So, without further ado, I'm going to get my gear out and let's get started. Alright, so I've not actually been under this car at all yet, so I've got the headlamp ready to go, I've got safety glasses on because whenever you go underneath, well, whenever I go underneath a car that's not been used for such a long time, it's not had been wax sealed or anything for ages, inevitably there's a load of crap which falls all over me, and the last thing I want to do is get it in my eyes. So if you've got a pair of safety goggles, just put them on. So let's turn the lamp on and let's head under and see what it's like. Hopefully it won't be too bad. I will apologise now for the camera going all over the place. But hopefully you'll be able to sort of see what I can sort of see. So sort of going in at the side here, and if I point it that way, we can. Where am I looking? Ah, there we go. So I'm trying to drive the camera back to front. Right, so we've got obviously the exhaust here, so we need to obviously get that off. We've got the battery cable, I think that looks like a brake line, a union there, that sort of continues along the underside here. It doesn't actually look too bad on the underside of here. There's a lot less corrosion than I thought there may be, which is a good sign. That might make things a little bit easier for us in some respects. I can see just above the exhaust here, this must be the connection for the gearbox, looking at it. Yes, I think it is. So let's just roll underneath and see what we got on the other side. Right, so this side, we've got these 3 pipes running down here, and they appear to be something to do with the fuel pump, which is there on the subframe. Hopefully you can just about see that there, because we don't need to take the fuel pump off here at the moment because it's attached to the subframe. We can drop the subframe out and then strip all that off afterwards, which is a good thing. Actually is generally a little bit more excuse me, recommended to do. I'm not actually too sure what these other pipes are which go along down here. I'm sure some mini experts out there will be able to go, that's what that is. But as well, obviously, looking at this, once we've got the exhaust off, we've also got this sort of asbestos or some sort of cladding type thing here. I don't think it's asbestos, it doesn't look like it, just looks like a big heat shield. But that goes where the handbrake cable is, and that actually goes above it, so we will have to try and remove that, and that looks like it's going to be a bit of a tricky job. So we may, well, we'll see how we get on. The first thing to get off is going to be the exhaust, to give us a little bit more space under here. Then once I've got that off, which does just look like a number of clamps along its length, and then obviously the manifold at the engine, which I'll roll down and have a quick look at in a minute. It just gives us a little bit more space because the The boxes on it are quite large actually, which is a bit of a surprise. So let's have a look at the front end down here. Yes, we can see that that's piece I mentioned before, which I thought was the gearbox linkage, is actually the gearbox linkage, so we will have to take that out at some point. And here we can see the front, well, the underside of the bottom end of the engine, and obviously this is all attached to the front subframe, so obviously that's got to, a lot of this will come off then. Now then, let's have a look when we get to the manifold from here, and it looks very much like we cannot. So it might be a bit of fun possibly with a hacksaw, but we'll see how we go. If we can avoid doing anything, looks like it's obviously had a repair here at some point in the past. We'll see how things come apart. It may be that this section has to come out with the engine, which will make things a bit difficult, or it may be able to drop out a bit later once we've got some more of the bits out from the top of the engine bay to give us a bit more space to get in. So yes, so I'll go and grab some spanners and tools and things, and we can look at starting to get this exhaust off.
Whew. Well, the exhaust was a bit trickier to get off than I thought it was going to be. The initial part came apart really well in the midsection where the two clamps were. So we basically undid one of the bolts and it just came crashing down. I thought, brilliant, way! But the other end, towards the front, remember when I said that it had that sort of little repair section where all that braiding was? Well, it turned out, this is it here, that it actually has a sort of concertina type piece. I hope you can sort of see that behind this stainless steel mesh type stuff. And basically what I've had to do is provide it with some metal fatigue, so excuse me, by swinging this section of the exhaust from one side of the car to the other, basically to wear it and break it through, and it took a while, but it did come off. So now underneath we're just left with the only bit of the exhaust that's on there is the bit from the manifold down to where this coupled up to it. So really the next jobs under here are going to be sort of taking out some of the brake pipes and some bits of the wiring. So time to crack on with those bits. Right, well, yeah, hopefully you'll be able to, you'll see in that sequence then that I've managed to get the battery cable off and the main brake pipe which runs on the front to the back of the car. So all that's left under there now really is the handbrake cables, and also the 3 pipes on the other side which I think follow the fuel line. So the next job I'm actually going to do is going to start taking out the fuel tank, because that will then give us a bit of access to the back of it and we can see what's going on and where these other pipes go and what they're for, to give us a bit of a better idea. So let's go hunting for what we need to get this bit out. Right, so obviously we're now looking in the boot, and this is the fuel tank, and I've never taken one of these out before, so it is a bit bit of guesswork and that, but we'll get it out one way or the other. And we can see that the 3 pipes which I mentioned that go underneath come up down the back here and connect to these rubber pipes which go up through. There's one with a filter on there by the looks of it, and a couple of others. So they are all fuel pipes. But what I'm going to do first, I think, is to actually undo excuse me, to undo the these rubber ones first, before trying to undo the tanks. That then may give us a little bit more room to get the tank out, possibly. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've taken some photos of this, so I know how it all goes back together. I'm just hoping that it's all going to come out fairly easily. Now, with the hoses, he's got these sort of special type clips on, which generally you can get to with a set of pliers if you can get into them. Basically, they open up like so, and you should then be able to pull the rubber pipe off. But because these have probably been on for such a long time, all I'm actually going to do today is literally just cut through them, purely to make it easier to get this out. So let's do that and hope that there's nothing going to come shooting out, which there isn't. Obviously, if you've got a tank full of fuel, probably not advisable to just go cutting willy-nilly, but because this has been stood for such a long time, chances are there's next to no fuel in there. So now just take the wires off for the sender so that they can go out of, well, a bit out of the way, let's say, as we cut the next one. It really is just a maze of hoses and cables. Oh, now I've got a bit of fuel in this one. You can see might be able to see that the pipe's just gone from the dusty black to a cleaner looking black. So again, let's get around the back and just give it a little snip. Let's get it off out of the way. And yes, there is a little bit of fuel there with that one. So now let's have another look. And luckily with this particular one, there is the speaker holes at the top here, so I can actually have a look from above at what other bits need sorting out. Such as that last bit of wiring for the sender. So I'm hoping I can just squeeze out of there now. Come on, baby. The problem with things have been on for such a long time, you don't always want to give up. Particularly easily. Come on. There we go. Come on, last little bit, there we go. So, now, hopefully get that out of the way. And then we've just got this little pipe here, which I think is this thin one. Just pull that there out of the way. So let's give that a little trim. There or so. So I'm hoping that that is now all the pipes disconnected, apart from obviously the main filler pipe, which you can't get to from this position. So the next bit is looking like the main tank strap. And this strap comes and follows down and goes to a little bolt just down here. So I'm going to find a socket to fit that, which will hopefully be one of these. Let's try that one. It's quite awkward to get in there. It's very awkward to get in there. It's smaller than that. So we can actually get a socket to get in there. Right, so a little bit bigger than that one. Hey, there we go. One that fits. So now I'm hoping that the extension there should now hopefully be able to line the strap off, well it's bolt off, isn't it? It's quite lucky that it actually seems to be wanting to undo. Now that's quite a rarity. If you've ever done restoration, you know, pretty much sometimes you get bolts which will undo dead easy, and others that just will not budge. And it's quite nice. It seems to be behaving itself. So I'm going to undo this all the way. So hopefully the strap will then be able to get out of the way completely. Stiff bit at the end. Annoying when that happens. Right. So as we can see, the strap will sort of get out of the way a bit, and hopefully now we got a bit of, yes, we do have a bit of movement on the tank. Hooray! Right, that's going to be a question, isn't it? How do we get that past there? Right, let's go and find the key. That one maybe. This has got a locking fuel cap on it. I'm hoping that found one. There we go. Take that out of the way. That may now actually pull out. That's good. Come on, baby. This is looking promising. Right, there is still some fuel in that, so I'm going to put the cap back on. Lock it so it doesn't fall off. And very carefully oink it out. Or drag it out as best we can. Excellent. So, ooh, look at that. We can see in here now. Right. So, well, if I turn the camera that way a little bit, hopefully you'll be able to see that we've got the 3 pipes that I've just had to cut through. Those are there, which go down, which are the ones which run the length of the car. So obviously I can now start getting those bits out. I'm also going to, whilst I'm here, I'll get the strap off properly so then that can go into storage with the fuel tank. And I'm going to get this other light fitting off as well, so that basically pretty much everything in the boot is removed. All we'll have in is the washer system bottle and a few other little bits and pieces which we can deal with possibly at the same time. Actually, might as well just get it all done. Yeah, I'll pull it all apart, but first, a cup of tea. Right, so I've now finished the rear end of the car. The main wiring loom that runs through the car, and I've pulled that out, I've pulled the washer hose out, so all that's left going underneath at the moment is the handbrake cables, which are underneath here. This is the handbrake, and obviously the gear selector equipment, and those fuel pipes which we saw going along earlier. Now I thought I'd probably best off getting the handbrake cables off first, because then that's sort of in the centre of the vehicle, so we want to be able to sort of, if we can get rid of that sooner rather than later, it makes it a lot easier. So this is the excuse me, the handbrake assembly. So obviously we've got two bolts here which hold the main lever in place. We've then got a pin with a split pin in it, which you can hopefully see rotating a bit there, which actually holds the cable which goes through, and then there's two little screws on the guide plate there. So all this has to come apart. The first thing we're going to take apart actually is going to be this split pin out of here. Quite fortunate that that's just bent around. Get in with the pliers to pull it out and put it somewhere safe. We can then remove the pin and the washer, just put them safely to one side for a minute, and that should then release the cable from the handbrake itself. So I'm just going to leave that there for a minute, and we'll get this out of the way, which is, like I said, it is literally bolted in place. So I'm hoping I should be able to just undo it. Get it started, and yes, that one will go by hand. And again, I'm just going to pop these away to one side, because we're going to probably be able to reuse these fittings. And that's the other side. Ow. And you should be able to see there that the rearmost bolt has released it. And it is very, very simple to take these apart. But it's one of those, if you've never done one before, it can look quite daunting, because there is a significant number of nuts, bolts and things, and it all magically pivots together, and actually somehow manages to work the handbrake. So that's that. So we can now put that away on the shelf somewhere nice and safe. So just put it on the rear seat stand for the time being. So now we're left with the main handbrake cable itself. Obviously, as you can see, we need to get rid of this fixing plate first. So should be able to just release that, which will then hopefully release this a bit more, to give us a bit more room to get this apart. Again, pop those bits to one side. There we go. So we've got a little bit more space now to be able to pull that out and back through. That's as far as it's going. So on the end of the cable here, we've got this U-shaped clamp which goes onto the bottom of the handbrake lever. So this is the actual bit that it pulls on, and that's obviously on a threaded bar with a couple of special nuts which hold it in place and again lock it in place. But we can't get the cable through the hole with this on, so we're going to have to take it off. So we're going to need to release these. Hopefully I've got a spanner that's going to fit it. And I might just be able to grab it with a pair of pliers for the other side. Nope, I have to get another spanner to match that, so just bear with me a minute. too big. Right, I don't particularly like using them, but adjustable spanners do come in useful at times, especially when doing something like this. As you can see, that took quite a bit of force. So we can now release the first nut. Should be able to just spin it off quite happily. We'll get to the end eventually. It is quite a long threaded bar, and then the lock nut for it. Just the same with that, release that all the way up. And again, I don't think the cable is going to go through with the nuts on, so we have to leave them off for the time being. Okay, now release that out of the way, put them all together, and then the cable is then free to drop through from the underside. All we're going to do is going to pull it through that insulation heat shield thing which we saw earlier when we were taking the exhaust off, and that will then obviously then drop to the floor and out of the way. So I suppose really that's the next job. Well, hopefully you should be able to now see that the handbrake cable is clear of the body. It's at this end, it is actually attached to the subframe, so we don't actually need to undo any more on the handbrake at all. That will drop down with the subframe when we drop it off there at some point next week, or in the next few days, or whenever we get round to it. So really the next job under here now is going to be getting these three fuel pipes off down the left hand side there. I think, to be honest, to make life easier, we're just going to cut them at this end and again at the other end to get them off, because then when we start stripping out the engine bay and we drop the subframes off, we should then be able to get easier access into these fuel pipes. So I'll crack on and get these off. Right, well, with the fuel pipes now being off, the only thing that's still attached forward of the car is the gear selector. So let's start taking it apart from the top side first. And to do that, we need to get the rubber off, and then we can have a look and see what's under there. If we need to undo anything else other than these two bolts here. So yep, the screwdriver in with the ratchets on. This should allow us to remove the retainer for all this. Just like it's spinning, so we might be able to pull that one out. This one. And that one seems to be doing the same, annoyingly. And hopefully this one's actually going to come out. That's more promising. So we've got two which are being a bit naughty, which is the front two. I'm hoping I might just be able to get them high enough. Come on. That's one. Last one. Come on. Yeah, you're gonna come out of that. Come on, darling. There we go. So I think the holes are a bit rusted on those then. Right, so if we just then take the top off the gear knob, and then remove the gaiter, and hopefully be able to see we have something suitable possibly to undo in there. We have a rubber gaiter as well. So let's pull that off. Oh, and we have another rubber gaiter which actually says the words top on it across there. It feels more like a foam than anything. So let's very carefully take that off if we can. In some ways that would be quite nice to put back as an original feature, but I think it's a bit past it. Still. Right, so that's left us with a great big hole for that to pass through. So I'm imagining that the reverse light switch wire needs to go through there. So let's poke that through the gasket. That will go through. Well, it's a snug fit, but it will go through. Right, so looking at that, I'm just going to put the gear knob back on the top of it just so I don't poke my eye out. That's not a thing I want to do. So it looks like we just need to undo these two retaining bolts here, and all of this will probably then drop through, I'm guessing. I've not undone anything at the front end of it, where it attaches to the other end of the linkage or anything, so it is a bit of guesswork of how this is going to drop out of here. Find, oh, look at that, straight on it with the right socket. Okay, that's that nut dropped out of the way then. Right. Wait, what's going on here? Feels like something is spinning where it shouldn't be. Probably means that the anti-rattle rubber that it's on has knackered itself. Just not releasing the nut. How annoying. That really is annoying actually. So we're going so well then. Right. Just try nipping it up then. Go one bit, go the other. No idea what just happened then. Right. Sort of try and have a look underneath and see what's happened. Ah, it's just spinning now. Wonderful, so that's going to need cutting off. Well, not to worry, I thought that was going to drop down a lot further than it actually has. So I'm going to have to go underneath and have a look and see what's actually going on up under there. Which will also mean that I might as well undo the linkage at the far end, and we will see what happens. Yes, that is a little bit annoying, that. Not to worry, we'll sort it.
Right. Well, what I'm hoping you can see is that we've got the two link arms here from the gearbox selector, from the gear stick, and these come down and attach through here and up here as well. Now this one's actually bolted in place, so that's a case of undo the nut and it should come free. This one is held in with two roll pins, which will need to be knocked out with suitable drift to then release it, because this is the actual one excuse me, which actuates all the mechanism for the gearbox. So first I'm going to try and undo the nut and bolt. I can find the spanner. There we go. And have to get the right end. Now the rearmost fork has actually got a slot in the bottom of it, which will be useful for pushing, well, for releasing the fork out. I'm just going to see if I can just get this to get going. That is very, very stiff on there. That's incredibly stiff, which is a bit annoying. Unfortunately, you can't get in with a on the ring or with a socket set. Let's go that way with it. Flip it up. That is very tight. That's going to be entertaining getting that out of there then. Right, okay, let's move back to the pin. That may be a little bit easier. Oh, that's already out. So, like I said, we've got two roll pins, and we've got one here, and then there's one 90 degrees towards the front somewhere. It's about around there somewhere. I've actually put the gearbox into gear so that I've got half a chance of getting, or to be able to see what I'm hitting, but also it should sort of help keep it in place. It's quite stiff, that, which is a bit annoying. That's not going anywhere, frustratingly. Let's see if I can find the other one. I had kind of hoped that this would come out of here quite easily, but doesn't look like it's going to, annoyingly. Doesn't look like it's moving at all. Right, I might have to get a slightly bigger hammer to see if we can get that to go. So I'll drop this onto the time lapse and hopefully it'll come out, instead of just sort of watching 10 minutes of me trying to hit the pin out that doesn't want to come out. Right, bigger hammer time.
Well, after a bit of a struggle, I finally got, well, one of the bars that was going to the gearbox off. I had to get the other one off at the gear lever end. There was a nut on there, so I was able to undo it at that end, because at the gearbox end it was going through a rubber bush, so you cannot get it to come out, because you need constant pressure on it to release it to get it to go, and if you try and do it upside down, you know, if you try and hit it, it's just bouncing back. It was just really very frustrating. So that is going to get dragged out when we take the engine and box out, which essentially is going to be starting in the next day we work on this. So we've cleared everything out now, all the way up to the front end. So we've literally got all this area here to clear out. So we've got all inside the engine bay to strip out, which will be certainly the next day's video. And then obviously we've got the engine to get out, and then after that we can finally get it off the subframes and any other bits and pieces that are still on there. There's one or two little bits that are still on there, like the little side light fittings on the wings, and there's and that. So it's really coming along now. I'm quite confident that we're going to be able to get the deadline done for when it goes for acid dipping in a few days' time. So yes, that'll be it for today. So anyway, I hope that you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you have, don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to like and share the videos. Oh, and of course, please do hit the subscribe button, because the next video, like I said, we'll be stripping out the engine bay, and I'm sure it's going to be an interesting video once again. So until next time, happy classic motoring.